So let's start off with one of my deepest insights about human flourishing is through Ken Wilber. And just to cut through context, that we are the byproduct of all the different forces that are affecting us in any moment, whether it's coming from our brain, our history, our consciousness, our behavior, our biology, the culture that we're currently in, or we were brought in, the norms, are the different systems. So I'm going to break human flourishing into little pieces and we're going to play with them. And my goal is that everybody gets at least one kind of insight. Don't worry about trying to grok everything I say. There are plenty of chances to follow up. And I start with a North Star, which is about because everything. What I've discovered is if you don't have a goal, like how are you going to orient your experience around? So I have a collective goal, which is around everybody wins at once. That's my personal thing. I think that's the heart of all of us is that if we could all live in a world where we're all feeling good about being alive at once, that I don't think too many people would say no to that. If they did that, probably in a low energy state, which we'll talk about. And as I promised, we talked about getting into flow states. So a collective is just a lot of individuals, right? So in order for us to have collective wins, we have to have individual wins. So I've defined that. I'm going to use a term called coherent energy, which I picked up from one of my energy teachers, Donnie Epstein. What does coherent energy mean? Coherent energy means getting your energy up and aligning it. Coherence means with the moment and your goals, right? And so what I'm really good at is deconstructing life into a lot of little parts and then rearranging them so we can get the most out of our experience. So we're going to have some experiences of that. And I have my own Trinity. I don't know, people's like, into Trinities and spirituality, like, the Father, Holy Spirit, Son, there's Vishnu, Brahman, Shiva there's a lot of different Trinities. I'm not going to go through all of them, but I got my own Mozenter trilogy which is mind mastery. So in my little guy, this is how Jonathan and Olson and I met is through Vajrayana Buddhism, and it stands for mind mastery. So I'm deeply studied and a teacher of Vajrayana Buddhism. I've also studied conscious language and somatic therapy, and then energy mastery. Energy mastery has a lot of subcomponents. So there's two important parts about energy mastery. It's not just there's the direction of the energy, where do you place the energy? And then there are the energetics, like the specifics of it. So it could be like energy levels, but then what I call like flavored energy, like not all energies are the same. Like you can have high intensity enthusiasm and then depression, they're different. They're different flavors. And so in terms of mastering the moment, you want to pick the right energetics that match like your goal and what's going on. So in the third component is what Jonathan said earlier about pattern mastery. So in pattern mastery, I'm a deep student of Ken Wilber and metaphysics and organizational development. So metaphysics is kind of like looking way up from like a mountain view and taking all the complexity and making it simple. And organizational development is simply the patterns of transformation, which I've been doing organizational development for 30 plus years. And so when you take all three together, you can so I would say the most highest expression of any person would be to be a really present, right? And really accurately assessing like what do you want to accomplish, what's going on in the present moment, and then picking the right tools. So the more tools you have and your ability to pick the tools and align with what your assessment is, the more you're successful. So the goal, is my meditation was teaching the only thing that's real is this moment. So we want to master this moment. And if we keep mastering this moment over and over again, then we have our most optimal life, which is about all we can really expect. So with that, I want to talk about really where's the leverage? This is a question that I ask over and over again. Where can I make the smallest change to make the biggest difference? And what I've discovered actually, thanks to Vajrayana Buddhism, really is the ability it turns out that all of us as children, like make up stories about life. We make up patterns, defense strategies, offensive strategies, identities, and we kind of forget about them. They go all the way back into our subconscious, but they affect everything afterwards. So the highest leverage is actually your ability to see what stories, what identities, what energies you're actually using in the now, and then being able to shift them. You can ask, oh, are these energies, identities, ways of looking at life useful still or not? Because yeah, I think it says like in the Bible, like something about, the fruits. Like, is it still bearing fruit? Is this branch still bearing fruit? Well, it turns out maybe some of the decisions we made about ourselves and about life as a kid, maybe as an adult, don't serve anymore, but they're still almost like our minds are like computer. They're still in our BIOS, our human consciousness BIOS. So I really help people get self-aware of all of the stories, energies, ways of looking at life, and help them ask, is this useful anymore? If not, let's change them. And because we can reprogram our mind if you have the right practices. And that's really what my whole practice is about, is helping people do that and deconstructing life into their smallest parts. So for the first, we're going to get into an experience exercise already. So one of the most important lessons, this is one to write down. This is one I got from Donnie Epstein, my energy teacher. Energy first. And I didn't ever really thought about it this way, but the energy or energetics, like energetics are kind of like flavored energy that we use actually determine what our experiences or have, maybe determines a strong, they have a strong influence. So if you're not even thinking about it, though a lot of people don't think about life in that way, like what energies am I using? What assumptions am I using? They're just kind of fused with their childhood programming and they're just operating. So we're going to do a couple of things, a lot of exercises to show people how to quickly get out of that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to get into a optimal energy state for this session. So this is a really quick exercises. Again, is something you can do. I like giving people things that they can practically use. So I promise a lot of experiences. This is called energy bundling, or Jonathan also likes to call them energy sandwiches, which is a funny name for it. So we're just going to pick two energies to show how we can quickly shift our state and get into a higher energy state. So we're just going to pick two. So we're all going to do this together. It's really fast, really quick, and again, you can use it anytime you want. So everyone put their left hand up, and let's just feel enthusiasm. Think of a time you were feeling like really enthusiastic about life, and you're bringing a lot of enthusiasm to the now. It's funny that the little hands go up because we put our hand up. So just really feel it. Woo! Well, let's be really thankful. This is Jonathan Olson's idea of bringing all these cool people together. So let's be grateful for him, really enthusiastic. We got so many brilliant people in the room. So let's bring in the energy of enthusiasm. We're all here with a bunch of really smart people to learn from each other, not only today, but in the future. So just feel that gratitude, enthusiasm, and bring it into your left hand. Then bring up your right hand. And let's get since the now is the only thing that's ultimately like real. So let's get really tenaciously fascinated with right now so we can get the most out of this call. So really get fascinated, like, oh, I'm with all these cool people. Oh, it's all free. It's a free exchange. I'm alive with really cool people. So really feel tenaciously fascinated for now. We'll just time bound it for the rest of this call. So you're not bound to this contract for forever. Another thing I call is like an energy contract. So now what we're going to do is we're going to call blending. So really feel the enthusiasm. Woo! I'm excited to be here. And then go to the other hand and feel like I'm going to really focus for the next 43 minutes and just really be here and focus on being with this group and getting the most out of it. So feel your tenacious fascination with the now. And then we're just going to do this really quickly. We're going to go like this. Watch me. I'm just going to look at one hand, feel the enthusiasm, then go to the other hand, tenaciously fascinated now. And then as you keep doing it, you go back and forth 1 second, like a half a second each. You start to bring your hands closer and closer together like this. We're blending these two energies. And I'm going to count down from 3 to 0. When we get to 0, clap your hands. So back and forth, 3, 2, 1, kaboom, and boom. So it's like a prayer. I call this like prayer 7.0. And you can add all kinds of ingredients to this. This is just a simple one with 2. So let's just put our hands like this and let's create a field. We got a Zoom field of enthusiasm and tenaciously fascinated with the now. So there's one little tool that you guys can use. All right. So now what I want to point out is really what I promised to talk to you about flow states. So one of the keys is to really become self-aware of what raises your energy really high and what's really low. So that's like a long-term thing, but the next kind of tool I'm gonna give to you is gonna help you with that process because it's a self-awareness process. You actually have to be aware, oh, I'm doing that thing that drops my energy and makes me have suboptimal choices. And then then you can turn your enemy into a friend because then it becomes a reminder of like what you could replace it with. And you can like actually create programs of like, oh, when I start to do this, I'm going to do this instead. And in order to do that, I'm going to bring up a theory I brought from Ken Wilber, which is another triad, which is called fusion, which is things are stuck together, and then differentiation, like, oh, wait a second, those things that I thought were one are actually multiple things. And then once you see it as a separate thing, you have the opportunity to integrate it in a new way. So this is the thing that's happening all the time. Anytime something new comes into our field as a collective or as an individual, we're like, oh, I didn't know that was a thing. Oh, quantum computing, what's that? How am I going to integrate that in my life? AI, oh, this distinction, these energy bundles, how am I going to bring that into my life? It's like it's a new thing I just differentiated for those who hadn't been exposed to it before. And so this is a pattern of life. This is where we just talked about energy, and now we're talking about a pattern. So I'm just showing you how I bring things together. So the next thing I'm going to do is the next exercise we're going to do a very short meditation, which is going to show you how to defuse from your subtle patterns. So this is something I got from Daniel P. Brown and Vajrayana Buddhism. So we're going to do a very short guided meditation. And I'm just going to walk you through it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to find our deepest self and differentiate it from the things that are impermanent. Like in Buddhism, it's important to know like who you really are at the deepest level, the face of a Buddha, and be able to differentiate it from the things that are come and go. Because a lot of times the things that we come and go, we make solid, and that gets in the way. So if we can make those things that are not permanent and differentiate them as something that's changeable, then we can change our relationship to it, and that can change everything downstream. Okay, so everybody put your feet on the ground, get your head up, just relax between the shoulders and the eyebrows, and just, breathe slowly. So I'm going to tell you that this meditation, that when I did it with Dan Brown, my first time I did it, changed my entire life. And I'll say a little bit more about it after we do the meditation. So what I want you to do is we're gonna differentiate between what is called as like ordinary mind and kind of like an aspect of like Buddha mind. So if I was doing regular mind, I would just kind of be like, I'm Jonathan Mozenter, I'm a person, I'm from Rochester, yada, my history, I'm looking at my laptop, yada, yada, like regular mind. It's just how we ordinarily see things. But now I'm going to show you a new way of look at things that changes your experience. We're going to talk a little bit about why it changes everything. So what I want you to do is first, everyone else just close our eyes. Sometimes it's good to start with our eyes closed and cut out the visual field. So you can still hear my voice. So what I want to do is break reality into 3 subtle parts. So the first part is I want you to find the part of you that's just kind of hearing my voice. And let's label that guy the observer or the witness. So just everybody find a part of you that's just observing, just witnessing. Now keep in mind, this part of you is separate from everything else. It's observing. And if you're like lucid in your dreams, the witness is still there. And so just find that spot and just kind of like maybe energetically anchor in it. So it's a really important thing. This part of you is kind of considered like solid. This is part of the real you, is this observer. Maybe just energetically feel some anchors coming in. Yeah, I am this observer. I'm this witnessing. I'm witnessing things happening in my field. And we're going to talk a little about the field in a second. And this is part of what's called, I call it the subtle masculine. And all men and women have subtle masculine and subtle feminine. So now that we've established ourselves as this observer or witness, the other part that's always constant is like the space or the ether that, so this is the field at which experience takes the place. And it's kind of invisible, but I'm going to make it visible to you. So for example, if I were going to describe if I was just looking at the space now, like everything's kind of black, I'm hearing my own voice. And it's kind of like the space or the ether or the field of awareness is the platform of which all existence takes place on. Like when you're dreaming, this field is still there, but it's actually invisible. That's why it's good to think of it as like space or ether. Everything is on. The space is always part of life. This platform of experience is there. So it's another part of the masculine. So just find that space. Another way of looking at it is imagine consciousness is this like lucid, clear, invisible field, and it takes in information from your five senses, your imagination, intuition, and it creates an experience. So everybody just find this field of awareness, space, ether. Some people call it consciousness. It's all about just being this spaciousness that's always right here. It's omnipresent. And again, maybe energetically imagine anchors. This is part of your permanent sense of self. This field, this observer and field could do it. And now you can imagine, since we're all that, this field can create kind of any kind of experience. Because, if I'm using my imagination, I could, create cartoon characters or swirls, colors, anything. So this is like infinity. At the deepest level, we're all kind of infinity and we're all the same. I think it doesn't say in the Bible something like God created himself in his own image. So all I see is life is a series of people who have an observer and and a field, and they're observing from it. And then kind of what's on top of it change. Why are we different? Because we all have different experiences through life. And like I have glasses on, and the different experiences and different placements of where we've been create these kind of filters. And these filters are good. They help shape us, and we don't all want to be the same. That would be boring. Just thank God life is exactly the way it is. We're all kind of diverse beings. So let's rest for a second in being this observer and this field of awareness. Now we're going to identify the third part, which is like this feminine, creative part, this thing that could be anything. So anything that is not the observer or this field of awareness. So for example, the sound of my voice or, your feelings, just feel your sensations, your emotions. Let's open our eyes for a second and see visual experience, see everything. If you turn your head, like notice what's right in front of you. And if you turn your head to your left, notice everything just changed, or lots of things changed, at least the perspective changed. And these are all temporary, or as Dan Brown calls them, lively awareness. These are not you. They're temporary. They are you, but they're temporary. They're not your fixed you. And then, in Buddhism, they talk about this thing about no self, but really what they're talking about is no fixed self. You don't want to have a fixed way of being because that stifles growth. You want to be able to change your sense of self so you can have variety and you can meet the moment. So these are three really important distinctions. And, we have a lot of habits of being our old sense of self. So it takes a while to change our basis of operation of seeing this new way. So repetition is a big part of transformation. So this is like fundamental things. And so this is always a good place because now from this place where you've now differentiated, you actually start to get permission to see when you start doing this practice on the regular, you'll start to notice subtle things that you were always fused to as, oh, I just had that thought, maybe some whatever it is, I made this judgment about myself or other people. And I'm like, do I need to do that? Is that the best option or not? So you need to differentiate. Remember, we talked about, so this was about differentiation. We went from fused to differentiating. So now all the subtle parts of you have the ability to differentiate. And what I've noticed with this practice, I've been doing this practice for 15 years, is your different subtle parts have layers. And so you want to go through each layer and ask, is this optimal or not? And it kind of keeps going. And then there's something about the deepest part of you is actually something called a defense pattern. A defense pattern is a way that you decided as a child to cope with overwhelm. Like, it's like self-coddling. Like your parents weren't always around there to hug you. At some point, you just go like, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I'm like, it's almost like a separation or fracturing. Every kid develops a pattern, a go-to strategy to manage overwhelm. It's really deep and it causes a lot of contraction and reactivity. And so when you go into a defense pattern, you're not really your true authentic self, you're a mask. And so one of the things I help people do is discover their defense patterns and subtle energetics that are dominating their reality and help them take them off so they can be more with the present. So imagine this is a really good way of fusing energy and information with the field. When you're the field and you're not contracted inwards with your own strategies, you have more ability and presence to take in information from everyone else who's in the field. And that's valuable because if you have more information you have, the more you can do with it. And the other big thing that I've learned is that Don Epstein pointed out there's really two primordial kinds of energy. One's called unbound, and one's called bound. And this is a really important distinction. Bound means something that it's already taken a form, a thought, an idea, an object, something you can name. And unbound is like free creative energy. So the goal really is most people, what they're doing is they have all these ideas about what life is, and they're referencing those bound energies, and then they're interpreting life through the same interpretations. And that doesn't mean we can't see patterns and change. But here's a better approach, and this is what Vajrayana Buddhism is. If you actually allow all the stuff that's not you, this lively awareness, to be like a maybe. In Vajrayana Buddhism, they call it this practice called Ma Mudra. It means great seal. And they stamp it with, that's not me. That's a maybe. That's open or empty. There's different words. But really the point of that practice, or one of the main points of practice, is like, don't take it so seriously. Don't make it solid. And when you do that, you allow this creative, unbound energy, this free energy to reinterpret life in new ways. You don't have to listen to them, but just having more options enables growth to go faster. And that's one of the main things is about helping people get off old patterns and consider new patterns, more openness. And that's what I think is one of the keys to human flourishing. So just a couple more things and then we'll open it up to questions and answers. And I got another technique here that I want to show people. So what we're noticing is that our mind is always labeling experience. And it's doing it through different kinds of what I call energetics, flavored energies. Like I'm judging it. I'm trying to optimize this. I'm in my survivor pattern. I'm labeling with enthusiasm or that's awful, that's terrible, shame. There's all these labels, and these labels cause energy, right? And I told you that energy determines your experience, or maybe determines is too strong. It strongly influences it. So if you notice you're constantly like labeling something that you're unaware of it, so you're always caught in these patterns, and suddenly you realize, oh, I'm always labeling as this. No wonder my energy is dropping. And then boom, once you make it an object, make subject an object, you're not fused to it anymore. That's what that means. When something is when it's just a subject, you're in the state of fusion where you're just kind of automatically going into it. But when you make it an object and you have choice, then you're empowered to grow faster. So one of the things I teach people is how to become aware of there's a whole taxonomy of energetics. I don't have time to get all into that. I gave you a couple examples, but there's a very huge one. And I empower people with different energetics to help them be aware of what they are and choose ones that are better, that are going to make their life more move towards their direction. So here's a big one. This is a big one to do. If I had to pick one thing to always do is to come at a place of this too can serve me. Even if it's a painful, uncomfortable experience, at least it's like a lesson learned. I mean, if I have a story about what life is, I would say we're all God trying to figure out what existence is and optimize it. So if nothing else, it serves it's a data point. If it's not getting us our most optimal experience, it's like, well, now I can think about why did I create that and how can I improve it? So at least at a very minimum, everything is data to end a pattern, right? Or potentially end a pattern. So labeling, so the key thing is here, if you want to pick one label, right? This is again, we can't teach everything in the Mozenter playbook. Oh, here, but one really big takeaway is start labeling things. I don't, this too serves me, or positive perception witnessing. I'm empowered to make the most of it. This allows you to take ownership of your life and the moment. You want to empower it because, like, if you have a story is like, oh, this is the way life is, and it's kind of like a victim mindset or negative perception witnessing, it's disempowering, right? And it's you can't master the moment from a victim place. You want to get empowered. So the last kind of exercise I want to do, this is really unique. Most people don't know about this. This is going to be an experiential exercise, which is that Donnie actually taught me this thing about some people prefer to have their field of awareness rested inside of themselves, and some people have it outside of themselves. And every Don, according to he calls it epi way, and what he says is that each person usually is resting in the one that's not their most energized one. And once you recognize it and you start retraining your mind to get into the most energized one, your life goes a lot better. This was another, after being the space was like a big life altering thing. This is one of the other things that changed me forever, which is recognizing that where I was most energized. So we're just going to do an experiential exercise. And so, and then maybe we'll process it a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to do two different positions, and we're going to note how and what is our energy level and what kind of words kind of come up. So you can kind of do it through time and space. So let's start with space. So I want everyone to close their eyes and put their hands over their heart and just relax. None of these are bad. We're just trying to figure out preferences. And the best way to really determine this is to play with it in your real life. But this introduces you to the concept, and hopefully we can start to give you an idea of which one might be your stronger suit. So with your eyes closed and your hand on your heart, this is like an inward position. Just notice, make mental notes, write them down. I'm going to ask you about it. What's it like to be in this position? What emotions or words come up? And then what energy level? Like where 10, you're super energy rich. Oh my God, this is the most amazing experience ever. Or like 1, I feel helpless and poor, or somewhere in the middle, like this is okay, or something that. So why doesn't everyone just sit here for like 30 seconds, a minute, and just answer those questions to themselves and make a note? And what we're going to do is we're going to contrast it with another exercise, and then we'll process it. Just notice your energy levels and what words or emotions kind of come up when you're in this position. Somebody needs to be muted, I think. All right. So make those notes about your energy level and the words. And now we're going to do the second position. We're going to do a more outward future position. So put your hands all the way up. We're going to open our eyes. We're going to do the opposite of what we just did. Put your hands way up in the air and look up and out like diagonal. So Donnie has this theory that some people maybe were born, this is kind of out there, but it actually resonates with me, is that you were born in the past some people may have come from the future. So I want you to put your hands up and out and look way out, up and out, and just same questions. What energy level are you at? Are you like really high, like super enthusiastic, or really low, or somewhere in the middle? What emotions, what words come to you when you're in this position? So let's just stay in this position for 30 seconds and just note them down. What energy level, what emotions, what words come to you in this experience? Okay, put your hands down. And just now, I'll take like 30 seconds and compare, like which one was more energizing for you. Or it's okay if you're not sure too. And then I would like to, yeah, take a couple people, maybe a couple volunteers, maybe two, three people could just very succinctly talk about their experience and I can help them interpret it. Yeah. I mean, did you notice a difference between one or the other? Were they the same? Anyone want to volunteer?
Yeah, Jonathan, I'm happy to jump in, but and I'm curious when I drop my awareness into my body and into my heart space, and I'm sitting there, right? You know, I wouldn't say I was particularly energized. It was like medium to low, but I'm
Mhm.
wondering how much of this is just state dependent on like I've had an emotionally kind of turbulent day, so and I can notice I am carrying that energy with me, and it is circulating or stuck here. So when I
Mhm.
pay attention to it, it amplifies it. So like I'm just wondering, like if I did this on a different day, would it feel different? I did notice in this position, I there was a much more of a lightness of being. It felt generally more filled with more possibility.
Yeah, I would pay attention to that because you're still carrying it with you with your hands up, right? So again, I want to, you can play with these exercises. I'm just introducing it to you. So I'm not here to tell you which right or wrong. The goal is for you to have a direct experience and practice it on your own. But my experience is I don't, Donnie says there's people have both, but I seem to attract the people who are more excited about having their hands up and out, the external, which is what I'm doing, probably because I'm very progressive and out there. And I like to, the people who are more outside like to bring like are another way you can tell that is like are you more attracted to like seeing a vision in the future and bring it to the now? Are you more excited about thinking about the best practices you learned growing up and through your life and sticking with those? I don't know. Does that question do anything for you? Do you have a preference between those two?
I'm definitely a hands up guy.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, so play my advice to you would be to just play with that. Like try focusing, like you can do this thing called decrees. Like I do this time, like I am outside. I'm outside field of awareness or whatever, ether or whatever words that really does that. And that actually changes my whole energy. So if I notice starting to get really negative, I've retrained my mind to be like, oh, you're going inward, you're going opposite. I'm external. So I'm more outward focused, and that actually helps shift my state and make the most of the moment. And also, it's not just so you know, it's hard. The higher energy state, at least first, because it's opposite, is hard to sustain like all day until you build the muscle. It's like going to the gym. Like the more you shift your identity to being outside, like I was very contracted, very inward, and I had to do a lot of reminding meditations, decrees. I'm the outside to retrain the muscle. So now I spend more of my time out there. And well, I'll say one thing that's really cool for those people when you are inward, now that you've done that exercise with where we differentiate the things that the thoughts you're having is like a portal to like deeper understanding your unconscious. So that's not even a waste of time too. I'd pay attention to like what is it that drops your energy because those are doorways to greater growth and development. So yeah, I'd say play with the external one first and see how it works for you. And anyone else?
I'll jump in. Yeah, I noticed that when I put my arms up, I had, when I was inside, I had like a energy level of like 2 and really
Mm,
tired. And really aware of this, yeah, this kind of exhaustion. I wanted to go deeper in, like a spiral kind of pulling me deeper in. But when I put my hands up and out, I suddenly felt inspired, and I noticed that I had this energy running through me that didn't feel like my own. It didn't feel like I had generated it. It felt like I
mm,
just had access now, and I was like a vessel, like a channel for a greater energy. And that felt great.
yeah, that's normal. And I think I've done this with you before. And so, yeah, that's what it feels like when you get into your natural state. You feel like you have more energy to do things, like a higher bandwidth. You can get channel. I know I channel, or I get more. It just, to use the language before, it accesses the unbound energy, the free energy, which allows you to have novel thoughts, novel experiences. So yeah, it was a game changer for me when I realized that. It really took my meditation practice to a new level, because I was struggling to sustain what Dan said was the great, the new operating system. But once I started putting in the energy, then the right energetics, and there's the epi way is one way to increase your energy. There's a lot of other ways which I teach, but just it made a big difference. We'll get time for like one more question. Anyone else, or maybe somebody who's bright, you want to jump in?
Mute. Yeah, I'll jump in. I spent a lot of time in high schools and colleges, and now I think I know when I was doing this, now I know what 6-7 means, because that's what I felt like. I was seriously, no, like when I put my hand on my heart, it was like a 5 or so, but then I got a little more energized. I think I'm finally realizing what 6-7 means. It's going up. I got it. I got it. Thank you for that.
Yeah, good. Yeah, I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, so yeah, this is a big game changer, like kind of coming for the future, being outside yourself. I think a lot of people, like, my interpretation is like people like get overwhelmed and they kind of contract into themselves, and this is where their defense patterns or strategies of management are. And when you get out here, they're not there. It's like a new operating system, is like Dan would use. And that's I know it's a big deal. So I mean, all my clients are have been external, so it doesn't. I don't want to say that the internal is not a thing. I met a few people in my Donnie Epstein class who said it, but yeah, just the main thing is to play with it and try it out for yourself. So we got about like 15 minutes left, and so why don't we just open it up for questions, and then at the end so we'll talk about, if other people want to be presenters, I'll tell you how you can get if you want to contact me afterwards, we'll end with that. So we want to open it up to any other questions about anything I had, or comments, or things related to human flourishing and these different kind of patterns? Yeah, and there's a couple people who've worked with me before. So if you've had any experiences with doing some of these techniques and you want to talk about how they made a difference in your life, that would be helpful too. So we'll open up the floor here.
John, this is Rich. I'll ask a quick question.
Go for it.
When you are, first putting these into practice, do you find yourself doing an early morning meditation to set the tone for your day? Is this something you are continually doing as you face yourself with different people or different experiences that you may have coming on? Or what is it that's most efficient for you to kind of target in on, which type of energy or where your thought process needs to be?
Yeah, fantastic question. So I'm getting to answer it in like three ways. So first off, I believe in customizing when possible. So it's like each person might not need the same thing at the same point, depending on where your current strengths and weaknesses are. So like, I don't know you yet. So if I don't know like what your strengths and weaknesses are, But I would say if you had to pick one thing first, is energy state. That's probably the more important of all three, because as I said, the energy state will I'll this is a very true for me. When I was diagnosed with ADD, I used to take ADD medication. I don't take that anymore. And when I first started doing meditation, I couldn't do the concentration practice. My mind's flying around, like really thoughtful. I had to do a lot of, I just intuitively knew before I even started these energy masters that I had to like drink some coffee, do some exercise before I was going to make any practice. So the number one thing I want to point out, if I had to pick somewhere, is get yourself in a good energy state. What is your formula? This is one of the things I'm always exploring with my clients is what are their personal formulas for high energy. So the first thing I start off is there's bioenergy. Obviously, you got to get your body ready. Like, do you need food, sleep, because that's going to affect things. But once you kind of get that in place, go into your epi way. Then you're asking about so I wanted this next part about meditation in the morning. I used to meditate all the time in the morning after I did exercise. Like, I go exercise, then meditate. And that really helped me. For me, it was a really skill. Like I break things down into competencies. So that helped me, that practice helped me get some space between my thoughts and my experience, because I was addicted to thinking and thinking my thoughts were real. So what I needed was some spaciousness. And really, honestly, in the beginning, I was like closing my eyes or doing 3/4 eyes, but I didn't have my big breakthrough until I started opening my eyes and meditating with my eyes open. And it wasn't until years later when I started studying with this other energy teacher, I realized, oh, it's because I'm more energized when I'm outside of myself. So that was like a game changer for me. Yeah. And the third one is this is the place you want to get to is to make this even in meditation, they call it like an off the pillow practice, like an all day practice, meaning that you're in the morning, maybe you do some things. You can meditate, but some people don't like to meditate. So if another trick is to pick like one or two, maybe three distinctions that are really powerful to you and just make them into what I call decrees. I say this thing called conscious language. And just because the whole point of the meditation and the repetition is to get like a new distinction into your nervous system. But that's just one way to do it. So another way is just if the first thing, let's say you want to take some lessons, just for everyone, from the classes, like energy first. Like I got to get myself, am I in a good energy state? If you're not, and then you can ask, well, why am I not in a good energy state? Do I need food? Do I need exercise? Do I need to get outside of my head? There's a lot of variables there, but so that would be a quick one, or like if you discover being outside or inside is better for you, just like remember, or the field of awareness. Like I am the field of awareness. I am outside the field of awareness. That's a really good one for me. It just quickly shifts things. And yeah. And then, a third one is more advanced. I'm saying there's a lot of advanced practitioners here, which is attunement to what drops your energy. So there's also what energizes you and then what drops it. And why do I say what drops it? Because that's a doorway of where can I get a perspective change? What is it? What energetics am I using that are dropping my energy? And okay, that's a place for, contemplation or exploration. And you can actually, if you make it an intention, you could be like, oh, I'm noticing, you could just be like, higher self, soul intelligence, can you please see why my energy is dropping, and start differentiating, what is it I'm thinking in these situations, and then make that an object, because you don't have to do that pattern and you can adjust it. Those are some simple strategies. Hope that's helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments? Olson, you got anything for me?
Oh man, this is amazing. I mean, I just feel like I personally got so much out of this. And even though you and I have done coaching together before, where I was benefiting from that through, I think, some interesting chapters of my life, you've just taken it up to another level. And I think, what I'm hearing that, I observe is, the stacking of all of these techniques together and how powerful that is like understanding what's the right recipe for you. based on what tools you might already know or tools that,
Yes.
are subtle shifts even. We joked around like, what's your sandwich? Lettuce, tomato, like what do you put on it? So, I feel like that's a big unlock for me, is this externalization, because I also feel like I'm naturally more energized when I can be an extrovert, but when I am processing and not fully coherent on how I'm interpreting my reality, I pull inward, and I have to sometimes actively embrace, this other aspect of my identity, which is I am not finite, right? I am potentially unbound. And so
hmm
I find that to be just that alone to be really useful. I appreciate you sharing that.
Cool. Maybe one thing we could quickly do is if people want to just take like 30 seconds or less or something. Is there one distinction that you found particularly helpful or anything useful? Maybe sometimes when one person mentions it helps other people get it. I'm always curious for what people are getting out of the call. So if there are any volunteers, and then we can kind of move into, we'll respect time boundaries and move into wrap up. Anyone got a favorite that they took out of this?
Everybody's being so quiet. I'll jump in again. Forgive me
Okay.
for dominating too much, but I really liked the difference on changing your perspective, either as the driving self or as the observer. I think that really helps you empathize and making sure that you are seeing yourself as someone else might, as you're interacting with the broader world as opposed to the whole world interacting with you. I think that was really impactful for me. And labeling the experience, I definitely clued in on part of that, where I tend to do that and it immediately limits that current experience because I'm bound by my past memory of what that was before, be it an interaction with an individual or being in another place. And I can absolutely see how my subconscious would then revert back to a defense mechanism or a canned set of conversations that I always apply to certain scenarios. So I think that's going to be really helpful for me to kind of break some of those habits where I maybe don't behave as freely as I need to tap into that unbound state. So those are really good for me.
Cool. Thanks for sharing a lot of good ones. Ken, you look like you just popped in here. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, hey Jonathan, good to see you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I liked the with the hands up, the concept of I am from the future. Something about that definitely resonated with me. And then the other message that was coming through was that I am infinite. So that one felt a bit more, spacious, unbounded, if you will. So I like that.
Nice. And that also resonates with the meditation things, as Dan's always talking about, being a bigger sense of self. A lot of people is very contracted and they're only looking at the circumstances and not seeing it from a longer, bigger view, often don't have as much range or ability to see things. So that's great. I think I saw some notes in here. Somebody says
Katya, do you want to speak your
Okay.
comment?
Sure. Yeah, just things that stuck with me, the points that stuck with me, really mastering the moment. I thought that's powerful. The bound and unbound energy. Vadim Zeland, he has like an interesting way of talking about this that resonates. He has different language, but to me, it's similar. It feels similar, like what you're saying. And actually, I wrote down, this too can serve me. I love that about any moment. Yeah, that feels really serving. To shift mindset really powerfully and immediately. And then, yeah, just how palpable it was, the difference between focusing inward and then focusing outward, not only with eyes open, but it's such a powerful somatic, right? Like gesture. And I just felt that, energy level 2 to 8, that's a big difference. So
Mhm.
I find that to be a very powerful tool. Yeah. Thank you.
Perfect. Yeah, you can put your hands up anytime. I was doing that all the time. I was like, when I first learned this, every time I start to drop, I'd be like, oh, wait, there's something else available. And so, yeah, you can do it coming. And also, as Kian said, coming from the future is another big part of that. So if you resonate more with the outside one, it's coming from the future, being outside, hands up and out, and then always positive. This too can serve me. So in the spirit of time, and looks like Carl Bratt was explaining to you what 6-7 means. It was like a silly phenomenon where kids were just saying the numbers 6 and 7 for a while, but I guess they put their hands up. But let's move towards a wrap up here. We got like 2 minutes left. So if you want to be in touch with me, I got all kinds of free stuff on my website. It's just Mozenter, my last name.com. There's podcasts. You can also go to YouTube. I'm just at Mozenter. I got all kinds of videos. I do work with people one-on-one, usually like in like long-term containers, or we meet every couple of weeks, and I really get to know you and help customize your energetics, help you undo patterns that are no longer working for you and replace them. So I go from defense to offense. How do you get out of these defense patterns and get into offense so you can move rapidly towards your dreams? You can also email me, just jonathan@mozenter.com. You can see my names up there on the screen. So be happy if you got more questions, we didn't get a chance to answer something, feel free to email me. I'm available. We're going to have a copy of this, an AI summary, transcript. We'll send it to the group. And yeah, we're going to pass the baton around and I think we're going to do this once a month. And yeah, John and I are going to help figure out, who wants to go next. So if you want to be a presenter, feel free to get a hold of us. I'll pass the baton to my buddy, Mr. Olson over here, and see if he's got anything else to add to this.
Yes, please reach out to us if you'd like to share things that you feel are ready to share with others. And I hope that everyone in this community gets to know one another and stays connected. At some point, we may need to find a community forum, but I think for now, I just want to be respectful of everyone's time. Thank you all for joining us. We'll try doing this monthly to start, but it may end up being more frequently than that. So you guys are amazing, and thank you all for being a part of this really special experience. And thank you to Jonathan for sharing his wisdom.
Yeah, thanks everybody coming. I look forward to seeing people at future meetings. Great to meet everyone. Look forward to deepening over time.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Jonathan. Well done.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you both. This was just wonderful.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Cheers, everybody.
Namaste. Okay.
All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.